Alright, before I even say anything about the setup I got behind me, I already know this is probably not the thing for a lot of people, and I guarantee this is going to get some crazy comments about this setup. But if you are interested, this week we are talking about the Borah Gear Bivy paired with the Gossamer Twinn Tarp. Alright, behind me I have the Borah Gear A67 Ultralight Bivy from the company Borah Gear. This company is based out of Montana, and they make everything here by themselves in the United States. Typically, if you're trying to order one of these, there's about a 5 to 6 weeks grace period because it's just a couple of guys making this in their own place, as far as I know. But regardless, it's made in the States, and so it's a trustworthy product that you can support a local with. So this is a company that's really about cottage gear and means what they say when they say that they are a cottage gear company. Okay, so I ended up choosing the Ultralight Bivy from them because my good buddy Lane has told me about this company for a long time, and me and a couple of my friends that go backpacking religiously with each other have talked about it as well, because we want to push ourselves. It's not necessarily just to be ultralight, but it's to get out of our comfort zone a little bit more and really see how we can connect more with the planet while we're out there doing the things we love to do the most. So when it came to the Ultralight Bivy, there's two choices that you can choose under that category. There's an A67 and an A90 material. The 90 is a little bit more dense. It's not much heavier. It's like an ounce or two heavier. Regardless, either choice is a good choice. If it's an ounce or two difference, it doesn't even matter. The material is DWR coated, so it is pretty splash resistant. I know that typically that doesn't last forever, so I would recommend maybe respraying it with some coating at your house, doing it on your own to make sure that you really get the most out of that durability when it comes to water resistance and backsplash. Now, when it comes to people that like DCF or Cuban, you have that option too. They do sell a DCF version of this. It's like an ounce or two lighter. I believe it only costs like $60 to $70 more, which again, for something DCF, typically the price range is skyrocketed, especially because the market loves that, and it's like a trigger word, just like ultralight. It gets people excited and makes them think that it's like the best thing in the world, which I'm kind of on the fence about. I think Dyneema is a really awesome material. It's really durable, but I do think it does tear a little easier with any sort of pressure or a stick poking through it, whereas my Sil Poly one has more stretch, so I feel like it's got more give to punctures than a Dyneema version. A lot of people have been asking me to make a video on this, and especially asking me questions about how it deals with the rain, and I will say I actually got lucky, and I wish that the trip I took it on, it rained. I wish beforehand that it would rain, and boy did it dump. It stayed consistently wet all day and all night, and it was really cool to see the bivy in action. The only reason that my bivy technically got wet wasn't because of the rain. It was because, like I had mentioned, I move around a lot, and the campsite we had chosen to stay at was a slope, and my tarp was in that slope section, so I kept sliding down, and I woke up tarp to bivy. And so what basically happened was all the tarp, you know, the tarp gets soaking wet with all the condensation, especially because it's single wall, and it was just laying on it all night at my feet. But I will say it did not get wet, so the bivy itself soaked up a lot of that water, but when I took my quilt out, it was barely damp. It wasn't wet at all. So even with that being the case, it did not get like soaked through, which is kind of interesting because I thought that for sure condensation was going to be an issue on that bivy, even though they claim it wasn't, and my buddy told me that's not the case. But once I saw it in action, I kind of couldn't really believe that that was the case. So that was pretty dope to see. But when it comes to splashback too, that no CM mesh on that top quarter of the actual bivy really does do a lot for backsplash. I mean, I don't know why or how it did, but it was just sticking to it. Nothing was coming through. And like I mentioned before, I get the long and wide because of the fact that it fits all of my gear in there. And I do have the option to slide my pad down to where the Sil Poly coverage is basically over my head. And I put my pack standing or sideways up, like sort of like acting as a wall on that mesh part of the bivy. So any splashback that comes towards my head will actually hit that and not get inside of my tarp or my bivy. This bivy's got 4 stake points on it. I use shepherd hook stakes because they're just really light. They're really cheap and bend a lot, but I think they're the Vargo brand, and I feel like I only like to put the stakes down because I don't want the bivy to fly away, and I move a lot in my sleep, so I kind of need it to be really in place and focused on that spot it's going to be in. If not, if I'll roll around, I'll be probably over by the lake or the river, wherever I'm staying in the morning, because I move a lot in my sleep. And surprisingly, I really thought I was going to hate it because it's so confined, and I'm a big one-person tent guy. When it comes to sizing though, they have regular, they have short, they got long, they have wide. You can kind of choose, and you can also reach out to them, or you can ask them maybe to custom tailor something that you might want to add on, and they're very open to change. So whatever you want to do, they will basically do that for you. The total of my bivy came out to only $118 for a Sil Poly bivy that weighs around 5 point something ounces, 5.8, maybe 6. I think that that's like an incredible weight savings for the overall backpacking community, especially in ultralight gear. As we all know, a lot of ultralight gear is very expensive. There's companies like DeSolo Gear that make that not the case, but for whatever reason, people think that good gear has to cost a lot of money, and that's just not the case, especially in this. You get something that's light, durable, water resistant, and overall just makes your experience in backpacking a lot closer to the planet and make you feel more connected while you're out there. I will say the only con that I had to say is that if you are someone that doesn't like to be confined in a little space and you already have a hard time in a one-person tent, scrap this out of your whole idea, get it out of your brain, because you are in there. This is your coffin. This is where you are going to be at all night. So if you are somebody, like I said, that needs that space and you want to sit up in your tent and you want to move around, don't even think about getting a bivy, because you're going to hate it for that reason alone. Back to one of the reasons why I ended up choosing a bivy this summer was because I feel like the multi-purpose factor of it is incredible. I have the choice to either just lay it flat like a bivy. I don't need a trekking pole, I don't need any tie-outs. But if you're someone that doesn't necessarily like the feeling of mesh on your face when you're laying down, I could see why that might be a little odd. That's why it has the versatility of the ways I'm showing you in this video right now. I had it, like I said, flat. One way you can also do it is just with a trekking pole or potentially a tree nearby where you can prop it up, and I can set my backpack on the pole for some extra reinforcement, as well as staking out the trekking pole down far enough back at a nice angle to where it doesn't just come out when the wind is blowing. And then I think that like the most safe way for you to set this up as far as like proper wind storms and rain and all of that would be to provide the tarp over the bivy and use that as your shelter, because there's tie-out points in the majority of tarps on the market, and as you can see, there's some tie-out points on top of the bivy that go to it, so it pulls the mesh way higher off your face, and those two tie-out points make a big difference, especially when rolling over, because you're not turning and hitting the Sil Poly bivy constantly when you're sleeping. Ideally, I would not be using my tarp this summer if I brought the bivy, but knowing the Sierra, chances are I will be setting up the tarp. That way I have that option, because the tarp is not exactly the easiest thing to set up, especially if you've never done it. And depending on if it's stormy or not, yeah, you can adjust it, but what happens if you have your tarp set up in an A-frame versus the rain starts to come is that if you want that back end to go down, you're probably going to have to move all the stakes and everything to readjust it, and it makes it a little more difficult and finicky, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So if you have something like this or want to do something like this, I recommend doing exactly what I do, and that's play with my gear in my backyard, and that way I get the chance to dial it in before I actually take it out and just get kind of messed up on a trip and get soaking wet, and you don't want to be uncomfortable when you're using something like this. So as I mentioned, I do pair this with the Gossamer Twinn Tarp. They did send me that tarp about last summer, so I didn't have to buy it. I got lucky in that case. The tarp weighs about 9.7 ounces as itself. It's a Sil Poly as well. There's a couple of tie-out points in the top of the tarp, specifically meant for a bivy or if you want like an upper shelf. There's 3 basic modes that I like to set this tarp up in, and the first one I'll go over for me is like a heavy storm mode, which I have the whole back of the tarp staked down. I have the sides pretty taut down, and I have the trekking pole on a fairly minimal height in the front of the tent. Now the con of this is that it is ridiculously hard to get into your bivy and into your tarp. You're basically army crawling. You're probably going to get a little wet at first, especially if it is raining, because you're going to touch your tarp and you're going to touch your bivy, but once you're in, you're in. You don't have to worry about water brushing under the sides or in the back because that tarp is so much lower to the ground. The second one is kind of what I like to call like the safety net, where I take the top half of my Durston Iceline pole and I put it in the back. Also, be really careful when you're tightening down your tarp with the trekking poles. Make sure they're not angled because they can crack and snap, especially with the more delicate, lighter pole. But like I mentioned, I have that top half of the pole in the back, so I have air ventilation, so that helps a little bit with condensation. And say you're somebody who's a little more vulnerable and you're not really too excited about being in a tarp because you're scared that maybe a bear will walk in the side or come through your feet. It's slightly more difficult for something to come through there, and you still get that ventilation flow. You will be protected in the rain as well. You might get slight splashback on your feet and your head, but I definitely think it's a good setup to try. And then the final one is just a basic tarp A-frame. You have the trekking poles both set up to similar heights. the tarp that I'm using is kind of tapered, so it's not exactly as versatile as just a square tarp with a bunch of tie-outs on it. Traditionally, it's set up in this A-frame form. You got a higher front point and then a shorter back point, or pretty similar height, and you just kind of stake out the sides, and that's perfect for a summer night where you just need something to go under, maybe some slight condensation protection. You get that nice breeze flowing through you all night. The breeze comes under the sides, the foot, and the head, so condensation won't be nearly an issue at all. Okay, so for the people that are saying, well, why would I get a tarp and a bivy? Yeah, it's 17 ounces in total, which is stupid light, when I could buy like a Durston X-Mid Pro for, you know, weighing around the same thing, about 15 ounces. And yeah, you're totally right, you could get that, and I think that that's a super solid tent to get. I love the Durston tents as well, and there's other ones like Gossamer the One tent, a lot of similar sized tents that are at that weight range. But for me, the deal breaker, if you had to choose one or the other, would be that strict price to weight ratio, because if I'm getting my tarp and my bivy, which was about $120, and I believe the twin tarp is about $120, that's $240 for 16 ounces, versus you want that super awesome X-Mid Pro tent, which who doesn't? That's also 16 ounces or so, but I believe the price tag is way higher. It's like $550 to $650, depending on the floor you get. So yeah, you have that super solid storm-proof, bomb-proof shelter, but with this you just have the versatility of setting the tarp up in different ways, or not even setting the tarp up at all, and you have the versatility of using the bivy in different ways, where it's just your ground sheet, it's a bug net, or you can pull it up to where it's not touching your face. So as far as versatility goes, I try to use that in a lot of my backpacking gear. I like the idea of having everything I bring have more than one purpose. Not everything can be used as that, but I feel like that's just a good rule of thumb. That way the gear you're using has more purpose than just that one ideal purpose. One other thing I wanted to address about the channel is that there's a lot of big changes coming. A lot of things have been happening for the channel with recognition, or brands, companies reaching out, or working with people. I recently just got involved in the Rock Porch Creator Program, which is super cool. I have those links in my Instagram bios, and I'll put it on my YouTube channel. Just a heads up, every time you guys make a purchase from one of those links, I do get paid from it. I'm not asking you to buy things to give me money, but it would be so meaningful if you guys did, because that would help me push this channel even further. I just upgraded my camera lens. We got a gimbal now, so the new microphone setup, so we're pushing it to the next level. And with that, I realize I do a bad job at actually showing that I am a real backpacker on YouTube. If you follow my Instagram, which is Gear Garden CA, you see that I actually go do a lot more of this, but I realize on my channel I've always done a poor job at documenting me going out and backpacking. And so this year, that's why I'm invested in more of the camera gear, because I want to go show you that I do this. I want to make awesome videos. I want to make cool silent films out backpacking, because that's one of my other favorite things to do. But when I started the channel, I kind of got lost in going backpacking was my safe space, and where I kind of decompressed, and I didn't want it to feel like work. Not that this does, but it adds that extra stressor potentially, or the extra weight. And I'll be honest, that was such a stupid thing that I actually had told myself last year. Was like, when I really got into ultralight backpacking, I was like, I can't bring my camera, it weighs like a few more pounds, and that's going to make a whole difference. And I had too much ego and too much pride to like let that weight go up, which is ridiculous and stupid, and I'm sorry that I was like that. But I can't wait to document all of my trips this year, and I've already gone on a few, and I feel guilty for not posting them. So that's going to be my goal for this year, is to give you guys more content of me actually doing these things. As you can see, I always make videos in my backyard too, and that's also because not everyone gets the opportunity to go to this beautiful mountain range every weekend to make a video. I live near Sacramento, so I do have the option to go any which way, but I have a family, and I take care of my family at home too. I work a full-time job as well, so my backyard is kind of my sanctuary where I test and play with my gear, and then when I go take it out, I come back and talk about it. So this year I'll be doing a better job at showing you guys that I do what I do. And I also just really want to thank everyone that watches this channel and subscribe to the channel. It's kind of, we've had a hard time grabbing onto the concept that this is kind of actually becoming a thing now, and people know who the channel is and what we do, and it's just one of those things, like I said, that you just don't believe is happening. And so to see the traction build, and to see the fans, and to see the supporters grow is just so cool. And so I'm really grateful for everyone that's on this channel, watching, liking, sharing, and I just really can't wait to see where this goes with you guys, and I really appreciate you. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.